Welcome back to the Holistic Health and Hormones podcast, your go-to space for nurturing your health, hormones, and holistic well-being. I'm your host, Ellie Huang, and today we're diving into a topic that affects so many expectant mothers. It's morning sickness in pregnancy. For those women, those early weeks and months of pregnancy can be overshadowed by persistent nausea, fatigue, and discomfort, making what should be a joyful time overwhelming. But what if you could naturally manage these symptoms using simple yet powerful holistic techniques? So whether you're currently battling morning sickness, supporting someone who is, or simply curious about the holistic pregnancy care, settle in and join us as we uncover natural strategies to ease nausea and embrace pregnancy with comfort and confidence. Let's welcome our guest, Marie, a childbirth educator, as we jump in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Health and Hormones podcast. I'm excited to have Marie Berwald, who is a holistic health coach, yoga teacher, and childbirth educator, specializing in guiding women through the perinatal journey with clarity, confidence, and calm. She draws on a rich blend of breathwork, biohacking, energy medicine, visualization, yoga, and holistic tools. And she creates powerful programs that support the whole woman through body, mind, and spirit. And she believes every mother deserves to feel strong, seen, and deeply supported on her path to parenthood. Welcome back, Marie.
Thank you for having me here.
So today I'm excited to really talk about the morning sickness and, that first trimester in pregnancy. Definitely in my clients, I've seen it affects most clients and usually ranges from mild to really severe. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, sort of what inspired you to sort of go into this holistic approach in pregnancy and childbirth support, and why sort of looking at that initial 3-month phase of helping them through the morning sickness?
So I've been working with pregnancy, for about the past 20 years, but it was only when my youngest sister, she's 10 years younger and chose to have kids lots later than me. And when she was pregnant with her first, she got really bad morning sickness. And of course, she was hiding it. Like so many women do, right? We're all trying to pretend that like we're okay when inside we are not okay, right? In that first trimester. And so she hadn't told anyone in our family yet that she was expecting. She was only like about 6 weeks along, but she was nauseous like 24/7, puking like up to 10, like somewhere between 6 to 10 times every day, having real troubles even keeping anything down. And so trouble taking in enough nutrients, trouble staying hydrated. And so she called me crying and was like, and that's how I found out she was pregnant.
Yeah,
And she's like,
help me.
what do I do? Right. And of course, like she had been to the doctor and, they kind of were like, well, it's true. It's a bit more severe. We can give you some medication. But like, you kind of just got to wait it out. And for her, the medication didn't do as much as it does for some. And so she was feeling very overwhelmed and very just miserable, you know? Because it's really hard to be excited about being pregnant when all you feel
When you're
is
so
sick.
sick. Yeah. So what led you specifically to integrate these sort of practices like yoga, breath work, energy medicine, and all of that? Like, what did you find? Like, obviously, was one not enough? So you're like, we're going to need as many different modalities, which is similar to me. It's like as many modalities as you can to help the client, right?
Yeah, because I think when we're looking at like it similar to like fertility, right? There are many different components that can influence it and how it unfolds for a woman in terms of like diet, lifestyle, mental stuff, beliefs, past beliefs, just energy imbalances, digestive system, stuff that was there even prior, but now like we've added in like this. So maybe like there were some digestive stuff that weren't, awesome before, but like your body was coping. And then we threw in pregnancy and suddenly it's like every single little mitochondria in every little cell is working overtime, trying to produce enough energy. And like all these hormones are making, digestion all wanky. And you add that on top of something that wasn't maybe optimally functioning. And now it's like you know? So I think that for me, that's why I feel like a holistic approach is more effective.
Yeah. And how common is morning sickness in pregnancy? What, like I said, some of the key factors, what other key factors contribute? Or we don't know why certain hormones or some people get severe morning sickness and others get nothing at all.
So the latest, we're actually getting some interesting research in this
Okay.
that's pretty new. So for a long time, we thought that it was related to HCG
Yeah.
because it tends to drop off as HCG
Mm.
drops off. But we weren't really able to figure out like why are some women getting it and some women aren't. Lately, there's a secondary hormone called GDF15. And GDF15 is really important to support some of the early development of the placenta and the amniotic fluid and all those support structures that the baby needs. So GDF15 is really important for all those things, but it has a downstream um, effect, which is that it often triggers the nausea center in the brain. And so we feel like right now, the best we understand the cause of morning sickness is about how sensitive your body is to GDF15. So some people's body, everybody gets the rise in GDF15. Some people, their body tolerates that rise and it doesn't upset the apple cart. And, they might get a little bit of like, food of like smells are weird and like, certain smells make them not feel so great. That's pretty typical. But then you get the more severe where, like they're so sensitive to this hormone, this GDF15, that like they're really not able to function.
Yeah. I mean, it's same with like just even like with foods or with anything. Some people are just sensitive and some aren't. You're gonna get a portion of the population that is. Can you explain some of the holistic perspectives on morning sickness and what is your approach? How is it different from like a purely medical approach? Because you use some great holistic techniques that you recommend women, sort of, apply during the sort of morning sickness.
Yeah, so typically we are okay, there's two things that typically happen. One, we're just kind of with the medications, we're basically trying to numb the symptoms.
It's usually
That's
like an
kind of the
antiemetic,
best.
right? Just to push it down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And and so that's kind of the best we can do. And then the other thing that you'll find with morning sickness is that it's a lot of throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. You know, so many people will be like, well, ginger worked for me. And then somebody else will tell you,
Yeah.
you got to get the seasickness bands and put those around your wrist. And then somebody else will say, oh, no, 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 you got to like have cut up lemons and keep them in your purse. Right. And so there are all these like various things that people will be trying, right? They might be trying like Prego Pops and like it just the list goes on and on. And what I think the challenge with that is that it's so much trial and error because there's not a lot of consistency with those type things. All those type things work. Like there's been research on like loads of
Ginger and
research
yeah.
on ginger and acupressure points and
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
research
Use a
reporting
fair
that
few.
all of these things work, right? Statistically. However, for an individual, it's like it's a lot of trial and error to figure out because we don't know. So we're just kind of trying a bunch of different things. So one of the things that I use to help women with morning sickness is I teach them how to do a simple form of muscle testing. And muscle testing is kind of like a biofeedback so
Yeah.
that they get like a feedback loop so they know what their body needs.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really, it's really useful. I know about muscle testing biofeedback. So yeah, your unconscious, your body knows, okay, this will be the best approach for me. Right. And then you can go from there. What about yoga? Do you use any sort of yoga or sequences, breath work to help reduce symptoms in morning sickness and promote that throughout pregnancy?
Yeah. So I would group those all into what I called stabilizing support. So what they basically do is they help the body to stabilize and they kind of act like these like little supports that you put around the body to help it deal with all these big hormone changes. There's a beautiful little yoga sequence that we can do that is all like super gentle. You never get off the mat. You're like on the floor, but it's basically all movements that help to stimulate digestion. And for a lot of women, just bringing that movement into their day to day, like that's enough to keep things feeling pretty good. And like I pre-recorded that yoga sequence and I've just given that to the world on YouTube. So we can put that in the show notes for anyone who's
Oh, that's very
listening.
generous. Yeah. Yeah.
And then for some people, they need more than just the stabilizing supports. They need to actually they need to address the underlying sensitivity. And for that, the thing that I found that is the most effective is energy work.
Amazing. So, I guess, are there any other dietary changes or nutritional tips that can help ease symptoms of morning sickness? I know eating a little bit more frequently,
Yeah.
I find, especially early on, when if you're leaving a really long gap, you can start feeling the nausea creep up. But are there any specific dietary changes, nutritional tips that you found helpful?
Okay, so like you said, what we want is really stable blood sugar.
Yeah.
And if we can get that really stable blood sugar, I mean, that is the whole. So many women get so mad at the name morning sickness. And I did too. I felt like somebody lied to me. I was like, I am not supposed to be sick after like noon. Like, I'm supposed to feel good. And I
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah. Well, some people get it really late in the afternoon or evening sickness, right?
Yeah.
It can come anytime.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
I
it's not
have
just
had
morning
like lots of people who,
nausea.
yeah, mornings are good for them, and actually
Mm,
afternoons and evenings are worse. But anyways, but the reason it's called morning sickness is because you're generally fasting through the night, right? Because you're
yeah,
not eating while you're sleeping. And so you have that, big dip in blood sugar at night.
yeah.
And then that's going to trigger. That's why often, one of the very early suggestions you'll hear is to put like crackers or like even better,
Oh,
like
yeah, I
nuts
was eating crackers
beside your
nonstop.
bed.
Yeah, in the first
Yeah, and
trimester.
to put them, like, right beside your
Yeah,
bed at night so
yeah,
that you just roll over and eat them so that you bring
yeah,
up your blood sugar before you start to move.
yeah.
So, yes, blood sugar is key, and there are certain foods that are easier, like, okay, another free resource that I created is I have a video about the 10 top superfoods for the first trimester, and I did a ridiculous amount of research on this one. And basically, to make the cut, the food had to be really easy to digest because their
Mm,
digestive system is really
yeah,
wonky. It had to be really a superfood in terms of having like a lot of nutrition for the amount of calories. Because one of the big challenges of the first trimester is that the mitochondria are working so hard. That's why you're so fatigued. It's not just
yes.
in your head, right? It
Energetically,
takes
there's so much happening. Like the cells, everything's forming. You're making a human, right? The amount of energy that is produced to make a little human in the first 3 months is crazy.
and you're
Yeah,
having to your
yeah,
body's having to build all those support systems, right? Like the umbilical cord, the placenta, the amniotic fluid, the sac, like all of it is being built in addition to babe. And so, yeah, like all of the mitochondria are like under a super big load. So when I was looking at foods, I was like, okay, what are the foods that are really gonna like feed the, the
yeah.
mitochondria, right?
Hmm.
And so that like the calories that you are taking in, um, they are going to be calories that are really gonna actually do something on a cellular level, right? And then the final thing was like they had to also be compatible for the first trimester. Like they had to ease nausea and help, keep blood sugar. So for example, sweet potatoes have a low glycemic index. So they're on my list because they
Hmm.
are like they're
Nutritious,
very
super easy to eat. Yeah, I love
mm-hmm.
sweet
Yeah.
potatoes.
And
Yeah,
like avocados are on that
yeah.
list for the same because avocados are very mild in flavor.
But
And
nutritious
so
and full of good omega-3s, which is good for brain health,
exactly.
for the
Yep.
baby, and heart health.
Yep. Yeah. And then to make it even easier, I then took those 10 superfoods and then I made 25 different smoothie recipes with those
Oh,
10
wow.
foods in different combinations because I get it. Like, it's really sometimes hard to get the food down. And often, like a cold smoothie, or like a big tip that a lot of my gals use is they will blend the smoothie and then freeze the smoothie into popsicles. And then you can just suck on them, because oftentimes you can't eat a huge amount all at once, but you can do something small. And sometimes the cold, like when it's cold, it's easier to get down as well. So the smoothies, they're already like super duper nutritious because you've chosen the like ingredients based on like superfoods. And then so that's a really good sort of like easy nutrition tip. So, and
Oh,
we can like the download to the
oh,
smoothie recipes.
that's really helpful. And I guess sometimes with this very severe morning sickness, it can sometimes lead to feelings of isolation, anxiety. It's very challenging for those going through that in the first trimester. So how do you support women emotionally during this time? How can they find support as well outside of, how can they ask for help really? Because it is really debilitating. They become isolated, they go very withdrawn, they don't want to go out. Yeah, it's such an important time. So how do you support the women through this?
Yeah. So I think the whole idea that you keep your pregnancy a secret from everyone
Yeah.
in the first trimester does more harm than good, because a lot of times you're doing it because in case, there's a
In
miscarriage, you
case
don't
there's a
have want to have to
miscarriage. Yeah.
announce to the world, right? So my recommendation is always that you choose like one or two really close friends. These are people who, if you had a miscarriage, you would be calling them to get their support and like talk to them anyways, right? So pull them in now, and have them be that extra person that you can talk to get that emotional support so you don't feel so isolated in the experience.
Yeah, that's a good tip because a lot of people do. They feel like, oh, I'm going to wait till the 13th week. I'm not going to share it. But then they're going through not knowing whether, and then also if they haven't shared, and then they're showing people that now they have a double whammy, right? Especially if they do have a bit of that morning sickness and it's like it starts off and then, God forbid the 8 to 10 weeks, so there's no heartbeat and then they go downhill. So they've been dealing with that and then the whole trauma. So there's almost like two traumas and then they feel like they haven't spoken to anyone and they want to work on it themselves. And it's really hard to not have that support. Whereas if you can have that support from the beginning from a close little group of women, usually they can understand what you're going through. It's very powerful. So yeah, I do urge people, like you said, to really share with a couple of really close confidants. Yeah,
Yeah.
about being pregnant, especially if it's their first time. It's really hard because there's so much anxiety and and fear in that first trimester.
Yeah, and there was like a really cool study I heard about lately, that it was like they showed people a really steep incline, and they asked the people to judge how scary this incline looked, like in order to have to run down it or ski down it. I can't remember. And then they showed them an equally steep incline, but this time they showed it to them while they were standing with their bestie, and got them and their bestie to talk about it. And then they were like, how scary does this incline feel? And in every case, the incline appeared, it was two different hills, but the incline was the same steepness. But when they were with their friend, they said it seemed less scary. And I think there's just
Yeah,
great truth, right? In
it's
that
so
idea that, like,
important.
yeah,
No, that's so important when you have someone like I had a sister and we go skiing and I remember one year we went down a wrong one. We went down a black and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so steep. And it's just like, that's all right. We'll just do it. We'll just like do it slowly and we'll just like wait for each other at the end, right? When you can do it with someone, it's so much more powerful than you doing it alone. Like I was on myself, I would have like probably climbed back up and or something. But yeah, when you can hold hands and be there for each other, it's a really amazing tip to give. What other common misconceptions may women have around morning sickness that you sort of want to clarify? What other sort of common misconceptions that can creep up around that?
I think the idea that you just have to tough it out, that they're like, you know, because so one of the things that I do with women is we look for like underlying imbalances between these imbalances kind of happen in like four areas. Like they might happen between mom and baby, and mom and baby support systems, right? They can happen on the digestive system, past emotional stuff that like is because we carry past emotions and our past experiences, not only in our heads, but in our bodies too. So that can have a disruptive effect on the body systems. And when we start to like release those underlying imbalances, then the body is able to cope with this, all the added pressure that pregnancy puts on the whole body system a lot more easily. And I think that too often women just feel like there's nothing I can do. And so they just kind of they suffer.
Yeah. So, coming on that, do you have any memorable stories of a client experience who overcame quite severe morning sickness using some of your holistic methods?
Mhm. Oh yeah, lots. There's one gal, Alana. Alana found that for her, it was like a lot of nausea with a ton of like acid reflux was what was
Mhm.
going on for her. And she was having a really hard time, getting food down. And then when she couldn't get food down, then she started to get anxious about like, am I taking in enough nutrients for me and for baby? And then, so then the anxiety would pick up, and then it was kind of like this vicious cycle where like now you've got all this anxiety, your whole body's like nervous system is all deregulated, and you're feeling nauseous and you can't eat, and it's just like a nasty cycle. And so we worked together, and we did all, it's like the combination, right? We're going to add in movement, we're going to add in breath work, we're going to start to make these energetic adjustments. We're going to start to release some of that emotional stuff from the past that, is holding you back. And it's like not like a, like, one day to next, but like as we started to make those adjustments, she was like, well, I'm having more moments in my day where like I have space, and I can eat and I feel like normal again. Right. And then, like, the more that we did it and the more that she was able to do the release work on herself, the more her body just kind of came into, I would say, just like more of a state of harmony. And then, like, those pockets of feeling good just started getting bigger and bigger, right? And lasting for more of the day. So, yeah, and then the nice thing for her was that as then the nausea came down, so did the anxiety, right? And then she could actually like eat and fuel her body and then, start to, and then the cool thing is that then you actually find the joy in it again. Because
Yeah. And that's so important because when you can manage your morning sickness, it can definitely help you get some confidence back and, some moments where, you can be more productive and whatnot during the day.
and you start to
Definitely.
feel like yourself again, right?
Yeah. 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 So I guess does that make people more ready for childbirth when they can effectively manage that morning sickness and throughout that first trimester? Have you seen it give the woman more confidence and a bit more readiness now that they've moved past that into the second trimester?
I think when you like build some self-calming skills and some body support skills where that you feel like okay, so like for example, muscle testing, right? Like if you learn muscle testing and you know how to like get answers back from your body based on like what your body specifically needs, then you start to build some confidence in like just being like feeling like you can take care of yourself and understand your body a little bit better. And I think that translates over. Um, all of the calming techniques are just, so helpful all throughout pregnancy. And I think those carry from first trimester all the way through and postpartum too. Cause like, oh my goodness, postpartum is like, you know, such an intense period. And so any of those, skills that you have and being able to self regulate and to calm the nervous system, those are going to help the whole way through. And anything like that's difficult, like morning sickness, is going to be exacerbated by stress. Like the more like anxious and stressed we are, that's going to make whatever we have going on more difficult to deal with. And so, yeah, I would say that probably the calming techniques are probably the part that actually carry through, all the way through this motherhood journey.
Yeah. And so I guess if a listener's currently struggling with intense morning sickness, what's the first step you'd recommend that she take away from today?
I think you can start with some of the simple like adjustments, like add in the gentle movements, add in the smoothies, start to add in those superfoods that are helping to reduce nausea
Mhm.
and see if that's enough. And if that is awesome, like you're good. If that's not enough, then they can get in touch with me and I can walk them through the process to do the energy readjustments that are going to
Yeah.
like start to shift that deeper level stuff.
Okay. Yeah, amazing. We'll post Marie's links there. And I guess lastly, finish off, what is the most powerful lesson or insight that pregnancy has taught you, really, that you'd love listeners to hold on to? Like, what's some powerful lessons or insights that you've learned or you've heard
Oh
of
gosh.
clients?
Yeah. I think pregnancy is like so magical. Like it is such a challenging time, but I think to think that you are this like vessel that like there's no other way to get here. Like if you want to be a human on our planet, there's no other way than to come through a woman's body. I think one of the like insights of pregnancy is just this connection to something bigger than bigger than you, right? That like that you're a part of something so much larger. And
Mm,
I think that's pretty, I remember having this moment when I was like early in my first pregnancy and, feeling nauseous, and I was walking down the sidewalk and there was like, an older woman and maybe a 50-year-old man who walked past me, and I just thought, you know, we all start out this way. Like at some point, those two people
yeah,
that
we're
just
all
passed
started.
me were probably like this big. Well, not were,
Two cells. We
probably
were two
were,
cells.
were. Yeah, we're like this big and probably making their moms feel nauseous too. Just that idea that this is,
We all came
this is
into the
how
world
we
the
come.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful process. The fact that you get to be a parent, to experience childbirth, whether, whatever the outcome is, but, you get to birth this human being who, you're going to be able to care and they're going to take over and build your legacy up, and leave behind a part of you. Like, just keeps going down the generations when you think like we've come from how many people before us and how many after
Uh-huh.
us. It's such a beautiful thing when you think about, how we came into the world and how beautiful, like, yeah, the whole process is. It's so divine. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's so special. And thank you so much, Marie, for sharing those amazing tips for your generous, smoothies and all the recipes. We'll post those in. And yeah, if you want to contact Marie, if you're going through severe nausea, morning sickness, and you want to feel empowered and how to, feel better in the first trimester, we'll leave her links in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us again, Marie. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you all for listening. See you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Holistic Health and Hormones podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring or informative, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It'll help us reach more women like you on their journey to vibrant health and balance. For more tips, resources, or to work with me directly, visit my websites. And remember, your health is your superpower. Keep nurturing it, and I'll see you in the next episode.